I still remember the day my dad told me it feels like a nightmare I can't wake up from. DUI name is Sophie. I'm 18 years old, and I've spent most of my life trying to stay out of the way. That might sound strange, but it's the truth. I grew up in a family where I was the afterthought, the one who got overlooked. My dad, John, and my stepmother, Lisa, had always been more focused on Hannah, my stepsister, than me. Hannah, as you might guess, was the golden child. Pretty popular, always the center of attention. Everyone loved her. Everyone always made excuses for her mistakes. Everyone thought she was perfect. Meanwhile, I worked hard to stay out of the limelight and just keep to myself. I never wanted to cause trouble, never wanted to be a burden. I knew the dynamics of our family well. I wasn't the one who got attention. I wasn't the one who mattered. But I thought, just maybe there was one thing I could claim as mine, one thing I could control. That was my college fund. I worked tirelessly through high school, earning scholarships, acing tests, staying up late to finish projects. I knew my parents weren't going to foot the bill for my education. I had to prove that I could do it on my own. My dad promised me the money that had been saved in my college fund ever since I was a kid. I wasn't naive. I knew it wasn't a guarantee, but it was the only thing I had, the only way I could make sure I got to go to the university I had worked so hard for. That was until the day everything came crashing down. It was a regular Tuesday evening when my dad called me into his office. He had that look on his face, the one he always gets when he's about to drop a bombshell. My stomach churned as I walked in, dreading whatever news he was about to deliver. "You wanted to talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sit down, Sophie," my dad said, his tone cold, as if he already knew this would hurt. I took a seat across from him, a strange feeling of knot rising in my chest. He cleared his throat and stared at the papers in front of him. "I've made a decision," he began, his voice flat. "I've decided to give your college fund to Hannah." I blinked, not fully comprehending what I had just heard. My mouth went dry. I thought I had misheard him. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't look up from the papers in front of him. "She needs it more than you do. You've got your scholarship. She doesn't have any. Anything." A cold wave washed over me. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. "You what?" I choked out. "Hannah's struggling. Her grades aren't good enough for a scholarship, and she's not going to be able to afford college on her own. You've got your scholarship, Sophie. You don't need the money." I felt like the floor had just been ripped out from under me. My head spun. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. This couldn't be happening. I had worked so hard. I had sacrificed so much. But in that moment, everything I had worked for felt worthless. "Dad, that was my money. I earned it. You promised me." "I didn't promise you anything, Sophie," my dad snapped, finally looking up from the papers. "You've got your scholarship. That's more than most people get. Hannah needs this more than you." I wanted to scream, to shout at him, to make him see how wrong this was. But all I could do was stare at him, my heart sinking deeper with every word he spoke. "But no more, Sophie. It's done. I've already transferred the money." I sat there, stunned into silence. My mind was racing, my hands trembling. It was over, just like that. My dad, the man that I thought I could count on, had just ripped away everything I had worked for. For her. I could feel my throat tightening. The tears were starting to burn behind my eyes, but I couldn't let them fall. Not in front of him, not in front of someone who had just torn my world apart. "I can't believe you're doing this," I finally said, my voice thick with emotion. Dad just shook his head. "You'll be fine. You've got your scholarship. Just let it go." And with that, he turned his attention back to the papers in front of him, completely dismissing me. I didn't know what to say anymore. I didn't know what to do. That I stood up and walked out of his office, my heart breaking with every step I took. I had been so sure that the one thing I had, the one thing I could rely on was mine. But in that moment, it was gone. Just like that. And worse yet, he didn't even care. I went straight to my room, slamming the door behind me. My heart was pounding in my chest, and my hand shook violently as I reached for the edge of my desk, gripping it just to stay upright. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't think clearly. My father had just taken everything from me. He had given her what was mine. I tried to convince myself that maybe he didn't know how much this meant to me. Maybe he didn't understand the effort I had put in. But deep down, I knew the truth. He didn't care. Hannah didn't care either. She didn't even know the hell I was going through. In fact, she'd probably never even asked. I knew her too well. She played the sweet, innocent act when it was convenient. But when it came down to it, she was just as manipulative as my father. The anger began to bubble up in me. My whole life, she'd gotten everything handed to her. She was the one who got praised for doing the bare minimum. She was the one who didn't have to fight for anything. And now she was getting my future. I couldn't believe it. But what hurt even more than the anger was the crushing feeling of betrayal. How could my dad do this to me? All those years of promises, all those late-night talks where he told me he was proud of me, all of it felt like a lie now. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of it all. I could hear the faint sounds of laughter coming from downstairs. It was my dad and Lisa celebrating. They probably didn't even know how much they had broken me. The worst part, it didn't even seem like anyone cared. I had no one to turn to. My friends? They would never understand. They didn't know what it was like to be the other daughter, the one who wasn't good enough for her father, the one who was always overshadowed by someone else. I had no choice but to fight for myself. I grabbed my phone from the desk and texted my best friend Emma. She was the one person who knew what I was going through. "I need to talk," I typed quickly. "Come over." I couldn't deal with this on my own. Not this time. Not a few minutes later, my phone buzzed with her reply. On my way. I had no idea what I was going to say to her, but I knew I couldn't sit in the silence any longer. Emma always knew how to listen, how to make me feel like things weren't so hopeless. I stood up and paced the room, trying to shake off the feeling of helplessness that had settled into my bones. But it was hard to fight when everything felt so out of control. And in that moment, I realized something that terrified me. I wasn't sure I could win this fight. The doorbell rang just as I was trying to collect myself. I wiped my face quickly, not wanting Emma to see how much I was falling apart, but deep down, I knew there was no hiding it. I opened the door, and there she was, Emma, standing in the doorway with that familiar, worried look on her face. Without a word, she walked in, sensing right away that something was wrong. "Talk to me," she said softly, guiding me to sit on my bed. What happened? I didn't want to say it aloud. I didn't want to acknowledge how cruel everything felt. But as soon as I saw her face, I knew I had to. "My dad," I began, my voice trembling, "he gave my college fund to Hannah. He said she needed it more." Emma stared at me, her eyes widening in disbelief. "What? Are you serious?" "Yeah," I whispered. "He said I didn't need it because I have my scholarship and that she's struggling, so she gets everything." Emma sat there in stunned silence for a moment. I could see the anger building up in her jaw tightening, but she didn't say anything right away. She just sat with me, letting me process. How is that even possible?" she finally asked. "That's your money, your future. Doesn't he see that?" I shook my head, the weight of everything crashing down on me again. "He doesn't care. He never cared. I was always the backup plan. Hannah was always the priority. And now it's like none of that matters." "Have you talked to him since?" "Not really," I said, wiping my eyes. I couldn't. He just brushed me off, told me to let it go like it was no big deal." "Unbelievable," Emma muttered, crossing her arms over her chest. This is messed up, Sophie. You worked your butt off for this, and now he's just handing it over?" I nodded, feeling the sting of betrayal all over again. It feels like everything I've done doesn't matter, that I don't matter. Don't let him get away with this, Emma said firmly, her voice full of fire. This isn't right. You can't just let him ruin your future. I looked at her, exhausted. But what can I do? I don't even know where to start. He's already transferred the money. It's gone, and Hannah's never going to give it back. Maybe not, she agreed, but you can still fight. There's got to be something you can do. You have to make him realize what he's done. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to feel like I had a chance, like I could fix this somehow. But deep down, a voice kept whispering that it was too late, that there was no turning back from this. Before I could respond, I heard footsteps on the stairs. My heart sank when I saw Lisa's shadow in the hallway. I shot a glance at Emma, but she didn't seem surprised. We both knew what was coming. Lisa knocked lightly on the door before entering. She smiled at me, that plastic, fake smile she always wore around me. "Sophie," she said in that sweet voice, the one that never reached her eyes. "We're all so happy for Hannah. She really needs this, and we're glad we could help." My stomach churned. "Yeah, I'm sure you are." She didn't catch the sarcasm in my tone. "Of course, I know you're disappointed, sweetie, but you have to understand. It's for the best. Hannah's future is at stake, and you've already got that scholarship. You don't need the extra money." I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell her what a horrible person she was, but instead I just sat there, biting my lip until I tasted blood. "Thanks for stopping by," I said flatly, trying to keep my voice calm even though it felt like my whole world was crumbling. Emma shot me a sympathetic look, but Lisa didn't notice. She was too busy basking in her own sense of righteousness. "I'll be in the kitchen," Lisa said, still wearing that fake smile. "Just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Let us know if you need anything, sweetie." As soon as she left the room, I collapsed back onto my bed. Emma sat next to me, her hand on my shoulder, but even her comfort couldn't shake the cold, hollow feeling that had taken over. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. "I can't just let this go, Emma," I said quietly, "but I don't know what I'm supposed to do now." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Emma just sat next to me, her hand still resting on my shoulder, offering what little comfort she could. The silence between us felt heavy, suffocating even. I could hear the faint sounds of laughter and chatter coming from downstairs, my dad and Lisa celebrating their decision, oblivious to the wreckage they had caused in my life. I felt small, worthless. All the hard work, the late nights studying, the sacrifices I had made to earn that scholarship, and for what? It felt like I had been working towards something that would never be mine, like I was always going to be second place no matter how much effort I put in. "I don't know what to do," I muttered almost to myself. "They're never going to take me seriously. My own dad. He's always been so focused on making Hannah happy, and now this. I feel invisible." Emma leaned in closer, her voice soft but firm. "You're not invisible, Sophie. You've worked harder than anyone I know. You've earned that scholarship, and it's yours, not hers, not anyone else's." I could feel the tears welling up again, but I forced them back. I couldn't cry anymore. I didn't have the luxury of letting myself break down, not now. "I'm just so angry at him, at everything. I worked for this for years, and they don't even see it. They don't see me." "Then make them see you," Emma said, her words cutting through the fog in my mind like a sharp knife. "This isn't just about money, Sophie. It's about your future. Don't let them take that from you. You've earned every bit of it, and you have to fight for it." "But how?" I asked, a sense of hopelessness creeping in again. "They've already made up their minds. I can't change that." Emma sat up straighter, her voice growing more determined. "You can. You just need to show them how much this matters. You're not just a backup plan. You have a future, and it doesn't revolve around them. You don't need their approval to succeed." Her words hit me hard, a wake-up call I wasn't ready for but desperately needed. I had been so focused on the unfairness of it all, on how badly they had treated me, that I forgot the most important thing. I earned this, and maybe, just maybe, I could still take it back. The idea of fighting for it felt overwhelming, but I knew I couldn't let this go. Not after everything I had worked for, not after everything they had taken from me. "I'll figure it out," I whispered, more to myself than to Emma. "I'll make them see I won't let them get away with this." Emma gave me a small, supportive smile. "You've got this. Don't let them feel like you're not worthy of your future." For the first time in hours, I felt a small flicker of hope. I wasn't ready to back down. I wasn't going to let my father or Lisa or even Hannah steal what was rightfully mine. But as I stared at the wall, the anger slowly simmering in my chest, I realized one thing. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about proving to myself that I wasn't going to let my family define my worth. I was going to take back what was mine, and I would do whatever it took to make them regret ever underestimating me. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. My mind was racing with ideas, but also with anger. It wasn't just the money that had been taken, it was my dignity, my future, everything I'd worked for. I was determined not to let it go. After a restless night of barely sleeping, I spent the entire morning planning. I had to find a way to get my college fund back, or at the very least make my father understand how much he had hurt me. I sat at my desk, scrolling through my phone, looking for any way to prove that what he had done wasn't just unfair. It was illegal why scholarship was important, yes, but the college fund was supposed to be my safety net. It was meant to cover expenses that weren't included in my scholarship, books, housing, anything that wasn't covered, and now that was all gone. Gone to someone who didn't need it, someone who hadn't worked a fraction as hard as I had. I started to search for legal loopholes. Maybe there was some way I could prove that my father had no right to make that decision. Maybe there was a way to show that he was neglecting my needs. But the more I looked, the more I realized that I was in deeper than I thought. My father wasn't just wrong, he was breaking the rules in ways I hadn't even considered. He didn't even know what he had done, but the legal battle was going to take time. Time I didn't have. And that's when I realized the worst part. Even if I won, even if I somehow got the money back, the damage was already done. Anyway, my father would never see me the same way again. He'd always look at me as the problem child, the one that didn't fit into his perfect little family. I was always going to be second place to Hannah. I sighed and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. I had a decision to make. I could keep fighting, keep pushing, and let this destroy everything. Or I could take a different approach and find a way to make my father regret his decision. Without involving the law, it felt like a risk either way. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let him win. I had to outsmart him. The days passed and I kept up the fight. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that no matter what I did, nothing would ever be the same. No matter how hard I worked to prove my worth, no matter how much effort I put into making my father see the damage he had caused, it all felt futile. I had tried to take back what was mine, but the weight of the situation was crushing. I knew deep down that there was no winning here. Not really. Emma had been my rock throughout all of this, always offering support, always reminding me of my worth, but even she could see it. Even she could feel the tension. Nothing I did could change the past. Nothing could undo the damage that had been done. And more importantly, nothing could make my family see me as anything more than a side character in their perfect little narrative. Then came the day when my father finally spoke to me again. It wasn't about the money, though. It wasn't about making things right. It was about him making sure I understood his position, how I had no right to question his decisions, how Hannah was more important because she was the one who needed help. He said, "You've already got a scholarship, Sophie. You don't need the money. You've already won." His words hit me like a slap in the face. It was as if everything I had done was irrelevant, as if the work I'd put in meant nothing to him. The scholarship was his excuse for taking away my future. "You're right," I said, quietly, my voice almost steady. "I don't need the money. But I did need your support, and I did need you to see me." There was a long pause. a heavy silence that stretched on too long. I could tell he didn't have a response. He didn't understand. Not really. He never had. Finally, he muttered, "I'm doing this for the family. It's for the best." And with that, he walked away. I could feel the tears brimming in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wasn't going to cry for him. I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. For the first time, I realized something. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the scholarship. It was about me finally understanding that no matter what I did, no matter how much I tried to prove myself, they weren't going to change. They weren't going to see me the way I wanted them. That I had spent all this time fighting for their approval, for their recognition, but now I realized I had to stop. I had to stop letting their expectations define me. I had to take control of my own future. I would make it on my own terms. And so, as my father's footsteps faded away, I made a vow to myself. I would never again beg for their acknowledgement. I wouldn't wait for their validation. I would build my future piece by piece, and I would do it alone if I had to.